102.7 WMAY.
Springfield's news and talk.
State lawmakers back today for the start of lame duck session, and that means a whole host of things could happen. We'll be unpacking some of that later on this morning, including conversations about taxes on winemakers and the possibility of a cap on pawnbroker loans. But one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is your Second Amendment rights and how those could be under a certain type of legislation that's being proposed at the Illinois State House. House Bill 5855 would ban the future sale of certain types of semi-automatic rifles, shotguns, and pistols, around 100 or so that at least I counted in the bill. But it wouldn't stop there. It would also go to ban the possession and sale of certain types of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds in the magazine. Plus, it would prohibit anyone under the age of 21 from getting a required firearm owner identification card in order to own or possess weapons or ammo, and it would also expand the firearm restraining order from 6 months to 12 months. So a pretty expansive bill. What's going to happen with this? They've held several hearings where the vast majority of those who spoke at the hearing were in favor of it, but there were people who spoke at the hearings that opposed it. Now, that's just the front-facing hearing. If you look at the witness slips that have been filed in these three different hearings, it is far more opposition than there is for support of this legislation. But one of those who helped kind of pick apart the various aspects of this bill, who's also been watching closely as to all the different lawsuits that there are across the country and here in Illinois, is Todd Vandermyde. He is a former NRA contract lobbyist, and he considers himself an all-around gun legislation guru. He joins us now on WMAY. Todd, thanks for taking time with us this morning. How you doing?
Hey, Greg. Not bad. How are you?
Yep. Ready to get back into watching what happens at the State House, as I'm sure you are as well. So what do you understand is going to happen with House Bill 5855 from State Representative Bob Morgan?
Not sure at this point. We know that last night I received some information that they're looking to modify the magazine limits. We hear the number they're kicking around now is 12. Not a big number, not a big jump from 10 to 12. And we think that they're having some discussions about the age limit stuff, because I think reality is setting into some people that they have constitutional issues with what they're proposing. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, we're not negotiating. There's nothing to negotiate. Our answer is no. Talk to the hand. We'll see what they propose, just so that we can have our lawyers ready to go to court.
And you talked about this on your YouTube channel, Freedom's Steel, and if people aren't subscribed to that, they surely should, because you do go into in-depth as to what's happening and the latest twists and turns that we don't necessarily see front-facing, but you definitely have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. But kind of go into a bit of why you're not negotiating. You had said on your channel that you don't want to negotiate a better mousetrap. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, in the past, they have started to get smarter about listening to what we say, and because of that, they've modified the bill. I mean, you'll see in this bill there is an exemption for lever-action guns, and that's a direct result of testimony I gave before, where I pointed out their magazine ban was such that things like the Henry rifle would be prohibited, and then they modified it so that they couldn't say they were banning lever-action guns. And we're not gonna educate them about this. People like Bob Morgan and others aren't gun guys. They don't understand what they're writing. They don't understand the impacts they're going to have on millions of Illinois citizens. And we're not going to educate them about it. We're just going to let them write whatever they're going to write. And then we're going to go to court, and we're going to go to court, and they're going to get an education in court about how stupid they are about what they're writing. And, words have consequences. They mean things. And that's what we're going to do.
Todd Vandermyde with us, a longtime gun rights advocate. You've had your eyes on this issue for a long time in Illinois, and appreciate your expertise on this. How powerful do you think it is, the argument about penalty enhancements? This was something that was raised by a variety of different types of minority community groups, saying that while they may support prohibiting the sale of certain types of weapons, they don't like the idea of penalty enhancements they say will disproportionately affect the minority community.
Well, I think it is a powerful argument. They've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years working on trying to have some equity within the criminal justice system, and now you're going to turn around and throw a bill out there that says you're a Class 2 felon, which is a minimum of, 5 years, simply for having a carry license with 2 15-round magazines. And so I think some people are starting, this is where they don't understand what they're writing. I think that is just the first part where they're running headlong into reality. So I've passed a background check. I have a FOIA card. You've got my fingerprints. And yet because I have 2 15-round magazines with me for my Glock 19, you're going to charge me with a Class 2 felony? It just goes to the absurdity of their position because it's never enough.
Todd, the issue of lawsuits, you definitely understand where all of these various aspects get debated in court, not just here in Illinois, but across the country. Give us kind of a lay of the land of what we've seen. I've got a story here that in Oregon, a judge has extended a ban on a new gun law that Oregon voters voted on. You've got the U.S. Supreme Court recently with their rulings against a New York law. What do you think's the sentiment of the courts, at least all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court? How is that going to impact what happens here in Illinois?
Well, the chief judge of the Court of Appeals here in the Seventh Circuit about a month and a half ago sat there and said that the Second Amendment is no longer a second-class right; it is a supercharged right. So I think that Mr. Morgan and others are going to run headlong into that sentiment. You've got a judge in New York that has just declared their red flag law unconstitutional. You have a judge in Oregon who's put their new permit to purchase and magazine ban on hold as being unconstitutional. You have 2 judges, federal judges in Colorado, declaring their local semi-auto bans unconstitutional and putting an injunction against them. I think, New York, they lost at the Supreme Court. They passed a new law flipping the middle finger to the courts, and that is now back up on an emergency appeal to the court. So I think that, it's going to be very interesting. I think the courts are on our side. I think they understand what's going on. It's taken them over 13 years to address what the lower courts have been getting wrong. It was pretty clear in Heller when they sat there and said in 2008, no enumerated constitutional right that is subject to a freestanding interest balancing approach. The very enumeration of that right takes out of the hands of government, even the third branch of government. And so we're going to force feed that to the Illinois legislature.
Todd Vandermyde with us. Yeah, he's a longtime gun rights advocate. And then when we look at the political landscape here for this current General Assembly, but then getting into the new General Assembly starting January 11th, where do downstate Democrats land on this? Because typically they've been the ones to not necessarily fall in line with some of the suburban or Cook County Democrats when it comes to gun legislation of this sort. Do you anticipate that the landscape change from the current General Assembly to the new General Assembly is going to change that, or how do you see that playing out?
Well, the downstate Democrats have been, like the dinosaurs. They're going extinct. And you don't have that kind of centrist, blue dog, common sense type of thing. You've got all these liberals coming out of the suburbs, and they want what they want. So that's another reason why we're simply not educating them about anything. It's like, pass whatever god-awful piece of garbage you think you can get away with, and we'll see you in court. And then you're going to get taught a lesson. It's kind of like, your dog that continuously doesn't want to go outside. We're going to rub their nose in it.
And then here we've got also, I think Madison County recently just passed a resolution opposing the idea of this kind of ban. We also have sanctuary counties across the states that are sanctuaries for the Second Amendment. How does that play into this? Is it ceremonial? Is it just, for show? Or is this something that substantively can be implemented in a county like even Madison or in Sangamon County, for instance?
Well, the question that I proposed at the committee hearing is, how are you going to enforce this? You have 70 sanctuary counties in this state. You now have counties like Effingham and Iroquois passing a resolution saying no county resources are to be extended to enforce this. So if you have county sheriffs saying we're not going to enforce this, prosecutors saying we're not going to prosecute this, how are they going to enforce this? Because this means that local law enforcement, if they make these magazines illegal, they make these guns illegal, that they now have to go out and arrest their neighbors, the people they go to church with, the people that barbecue with them, the guys they see at the bar, the parents of the kids on their sports teams. And, Mr. Morgan and company refuse to answer that question. But it's the biggest one. How are you going to enforce this? Are you going to start sending the state police house to house based on FOID cards? And they refuse to answer the question. And I just don't see how they can enforce this. I mean, guns may have serial numbers on them, but magazines don't.
We'll watch this closely. Todd, I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll connect again in the near future, especially with just a handful of days here for lame duck session before the start of a new General Assembly and how rapid they could put this together if it indeed does advance. So we'll be in close touch. Appreciate it. Be safe out there, all right?
All right, I'm always waiting for you to wake me up, dude.
Right on. All right. Appreciate it. And again, tell us about your YouTube channel. Where can people find that?
It's Freedom Steel. It's a play on me being an operating engineer, running bulldozers and building 20 new ranges out at the gun club, but also the metal that it takes to stand up to these nitwits and all that kind of stuff. And my signature phrase is frag out from my time in the military, that we are throwing knowledge hand grenades out there all the time in order to educate people. Todd
Vandermyde, Freedom's Steel. Greatly appreciate it. We'll talk again soon, all right?
Frag out, dude.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMA.